Hello everyone, 大家好, and welcome to Lesson 6 of Bitesize Mandarin, which is based on the study article for the week of October 16th, 2023. Now, just a heads up, this lesson might be a little longer than usual, as at the end we'll be talking about synchronization with Watchtower Online Library. So let's get cracking with this sentence from paragraph 17, which reads, 我们不仅要在行动上，也必须在思想和内心上谨守中立的立场。We must remain politically neutral, not only in our actions, but also in our thoughts and feelings. So no surprises, it's another correlative, and this time it's 不仅也, which means not only A, but also B. Now you may have noticed that with this and other correlatives, it often results in longer, more complex sentences, which sometimes can be off-putting. But if we think about what correlatives do fundamentally, they simply join two phrases together. So if we can figure out what those two phrases are, then using correlatives, in this instance, 不仅也, we can join them together. So let's test that method. Let's say phrase 1 is 我要学习语言, I want to learn the language. And phrase 2, 我要了解文化. So two independent phrases until we introduce the correlative 不仅也 to join them together to form the sentence 我不仅要学习语言，也要了解文化. I not only want to learn the language, but also want to understand the culture. And as is the case with many sentences like this in Chinese, I don't need to repeat the subject. I could say 我不仅要学习语言，我也要了解文化. But actually the second occurrence of the subject, when it's the same as the first, is more commonly omitted. Now let's try another example. And this time phrase 1 is 我们应该研读圣经, we should study the Bible. And phrase 2, 我们应该实践其中的原则. Again, independent phrases until we join them with 不仅也. 我们不仅应该研读圣经，也应该实践其中的原则. We not only should study the Bible, but should also apply its principles. Now notice in English, we could say we not only should study the Bible, or not only should we study the Bible, or even we should not only study the Bible. And in the second part of the sentence, but should also. So all of these different variations are possible in English, but the structure in Chinese, perhaps thankfully, is rigid and stays the same. So we couldn't say something like 我们应该不仅研读圣经，应该也实践其中的原则. So this would be incorrect. And here is another example. 上帝不仅是全能的创造主，也是仁爱的天父. God is not only the Almighty Creator, but is also our loving Heavenly Father. So note the word order and the difference. In English, God is not only. In Chinese, God not only is. 上帝不仅是. In English, but is also. In Chinese, also is. 也是. So the Chinese will always follow this fixed structure. Now let's take a look at another sentence. Jehovah will not only listen to our prayers, but will also answer us. So to get this sentence into the Chinese word order, we need to move not only toward the beginning, and later in the sentence, but will also should be, but also will. And now the sentence reads, Jehovah not only will listen to our prayers, but also will answer us. And now we can translate. 耶和华不仅会倾听我们的祷告，也会回应我们. So here, 倾 means to lean, as in to lean one's ear closer to something, to listen more closely. So when we say 耶和华会倾听我们的祷告, this means that he will listen closely, attentively to our prayers. And given what we've discussed about 会 in previous lessons, we know that this sentence could mean Jehovah not only will listen to our prayers, but also will answer us, But it could also mean Jehovah not only listens to our prayers, but also answers us. And the meaning is determined by the context. Now, going back to that sentence in paragraph 17, and there's a lot going on here, so it's quite complex with so many elements to it. So we have actions, thoughts, and feelings. But if we take all of these things away, what is the key point in this sentence? It's simply remain politically neutral. So, 谨守, adhere strictly to something, 中立, neutral, 立场, position. So, 谨守中立的立场, adhere strictly to a neutral position or remain politically neutral. So, looking at the full sentence again, the key point is remain politically neutral. Now, the English puts it toward the beginning of the sentence, whereas the Chinese puts it right at the end. And then finally, we need to move not only toward the beginning. And so we not only must, 我们不仅要 in our actions, 在行动上, but also must, 也必须 in our thoughts and feelings, 在思想和内心上 remain politically neutral, 谨守中立的立场. Now, granted, constructing sentences like this takes time and practice, but the payoff is worth it as we can then express our ideas as fully as we would in our own language. Let's practice this method with one more example. Christians express their faith not only when preaching, but also when giving comments. So what is the key point in this sentence? It's express their faith. So in English, it's near the beginning, but in Chinese, we put it right at the end. In fact, just by doing that, we have the sentence in the order necessary to translate. So if you like, you could pause the video and see if you can translate the sentence. So we know that when preaching in Chinese is 在传道的时候, when giving comments, 在发表评论的时候, express their faith. One way to say that is 表达自己的信心. So this is like saying express their own faith. So in full, 基督徒不仅在传道的时候，也在发表评论的时候表达自己的信心. So as we can see, correlatives are a crucial way in Mandarin to tie different phrases together and form longer sentences. In this case, the correlative is 不仅也, meaning not only A, but also B. And now back to the main article. And this time we'll look at a sentence from paragraph 19. Again, another longer sentence. 连先知但以理也不理解他写下来的一些话是什么意思. Even the prophet Daniel did not understand the meaning of everything he wrote down. And we're looking at this structure, 连也. So we're not out of the correlative words just yet. And this one simply means even. Now let's look at it back in that sentence. 连先知但以理也不理解. And in fact, let's stop there and break it down. 先知但以理不理解. The prophet Daniel did not understand. 先知但以理也不理解. The prophet Daniel also did not understand. 连先知但以理也不理解. Even the prophet Daniel also did not understand. And of course, in the English, we commonly omit the word also. And then we can look at this phrase back in the original sentence. Let's try another sentence. 在会众的聚会里，我看到连小孩子也会发表评论. At congregation meetings, I saw that even small children would give comments. So let's break this one down. 小孩子会发表评论. Small children would give comments. 小孩子也会发表评论. Small children would also give comments. And actually, to make it more Chinesey, small children also would give comments. 连小孩子也会发表评论. Even small children also would give comments. And we take out the also in English. And then we can put that back into the original sentence. Now let's see another example. Someone might say something like, he's not even willing to wait 1 minute. But what we mean by this is he's not willing to wait even 1 minute. And we can get that into the Chinese structure by saying even 1 minute, he's not willing to wait. And then we add also. And so when we break it down like this, we can perhaps begin to see why the Chinese sentence has yeah, meaning also. Imagine this conversation between two random people. Is he willing to wait? No, not even 1 minute. Even 1 minute, he's also not willing to wait. So for sure, it's not the most natural of conversations, but it highlights the logic of the correlative lian, yeah. And now going back to this sentence, which is now ready to translate. 连一分钟他也不愿意等. And in fact, one minor adjustment, it's actually more common and more natural to say 他连一分钟也不愿意等. And that's how we say he's not even willing to wait 1 minute, or he's not willing to wait even 1 minute. And here's another sentence. I didn't even see one person, meaning I didn't see even one person. Rearrange, even one person I didn't see. And add the final touch, even one person I also didn't see. And then translate. 连一个人我也没有看到. And of course, it's more natural to say 我连一个人也没有看到. And that's how we say I didn't even see one person. And here's another one. They didn't even say thank you, meaning they didn't say even thank you. Rearrange, even thank you they didn't say. And we add the cherry on top, even thank you they also didn't say. Translate, 连一声谢谢他们也没有说. And to make it more native sounding, 他们连一声谢谢也没有说. And that's how we say, they didn't even say thank you. Now, just to briefly explain, 声, it's a measure word for sounds, including spoken phrases like thank you. So if 他们连一声谢谢也没有说 means they didn't even say thank you, then how do you think we say they didn't even say sorry? 他们连一声对不起也没有说. How about they didn't even say hello? 他们连一声你好也没有说. They didn't even say goodbye. 他们连一声再见也没有说. So, 连也 is a correlative meaning even. Now, there is actually more to this correlative, which we'll discuss in a future lesson. But for now, let's revisit an example sentence from the last lesson. 因此，我们应该努力培养基督徒的好品格. This was part of an example sentence from the discussion on 不是而是. And what we want to highlight from here is this phrase 基督徒的好品格, Christian personality. Now, this is what we can call JW vocab, because it cannot be plecoed, Googled, or even ChatGPT'd, at least not accurately. So this is where we need the power of syncing. And for that, we need Watchtower Online Library. So once we're on the library, before we do anything else, we need to change some settings by clicking this icon here. And then in the search section, we want to select the scope as located in the same sentence. And in the search results sorting, we want that sorted by date, newest first. And the reason for this is that certain JW vocab has new updated translation. For example, Holy Spirit used to be translated as 圣灵, and now it's 神圣力量. So to get the most accurate and up-to-date Chinese JW vocab, we want the most recent articles. In fact, the more recent, the better. And then finally, one more thing to do is to check this box here so that we're showing the pinyin when we synchronize across to the Chinese. And then we click save, and now we're ready to experience that syncing feeling. So in the search box at the top here, I will type Christian personality. And then click search. And we can see here that it's set to located in the same sentence and sorted by date, newest first, which is just how we want it. However, you may have noticed that there are some instances where the words are still separated, even though they're in the same sentence. So, for example, here, Christian is at the beginning of the sentence and personality is toward the end. So, this is not a phrase. It just so happens that it's the two words that we've searched for so happen to be in the same sentence. And so, the way for us to fix that is to go back to the search box and surround the phrase with quotation marks. And this will now search for it as a complete phrase as opposed to individual words. And we can see that from the search results here. It's returned them as a phrase. Now, I recommend that for one last step, we limit the search to Watchtower only. And we can do that by clicking on Uncheck All, which deselects all of the options, and then checking Watchtower. Now, the reason to limit it in this way is that out of all the publications, the Watchtower is always going to be the most up to date, as new issues are published regularly. And although it's written in a formal manner, it still has phrases that we can use in everyday speech, as opposed to something like the Insight book, which uses extremely formal language and which we're unlikely to use in everyday speech, or even the Draw Close to God book, which is a much older publication. And therefore, some of the Chinese JW vocab is not up to date. So hence the recommendation to limit the search to Watchtower. As we've seen here, the search is restricted to Watchtower and we've got 118 results. And so we'll click on this first result here. And the first thing that we want to do is take note of some landmarks. In other words, certain features that stand out so that we can more easily find the phrase we need when we sync across to the Chinese. Otherwise, we will be lost in a sea of characters and pinyin. So in this case, one landmark that we have is this image of this brother staring into space. And above that, we know that our phrase is in paragraph 14, and it's toward the end of the paragraph. And so before and after this phrase, we have some landmarks. So before it, we have these numbers 21 and 25. And after it, we have the numbers 9 and 27. So we know that our phrase is somewhere between these numbers. And when we sync across, these numbers will stand out to us. And to sync across, we click on the arrows in the top right. And if we haven't done this before, then the first thing we'll need to do is set up our synchronization language, which in this case is Mandarin. And we want simplified. And if we select that, then it will sync across. Now we only need to do all of this once. So for future searches, everything that we've set up in the English and our sync language Mandarin will all be saved by default. So now that we've synced across, we need to scroll down to paragraph 14. And in a moment, we'll see a way that we can be taken directly to the paragraph without having to scroll. But for now, here we are in paragraph 14, and we've found the landmark, which is the image, and we can scroll up, and we know that the phrase is somewhere between these two landmarks here, 21 and 25, and 9 and 27. And we know that it's somewhere toward the end of the paragraph. And if we just search around a little bit, we see that it's here. Jidu tu pinga. So it's actually jidu tu de pinga. Now, if we were to look this up in other instances, we might find that it says jidu tu de hao pinga, which is just another way to say Christian personality. So in practice, it's always a good idea to look at other instances just to confirm that the Chinese phrase is indeed the one that we're looking for, and then we can use it. Now let's zoom out to do one more exercise with this. So back to the search box. And let's say now I want to know how to say God will answer our prayers. So I've enclosed it in the quotation marks to search for it as a phrase. But look what happens here. Only 6 results. And the most recent one is from 14 years ago, Watchtower 2009. And the one after that is from Watchtower 1982. So how can we widen the search? Well, really, the key words we want for this particular phrase is answer and prayer. So we can take everything else out and take it out of quotation marks in this instance because we want to find all variations of this. Now we have these 2 key words, but we know that these key words also have variations. For example, we could have prayer singular or prayers plural. We could have answer, answers, answered, answering, and so forth and so on. So maybe we want to take all of these possibilities into account, and we do that by simply adding an asterisk after each of these keywords. And the asterisk acts as a wildcard. And so if I click search for this, and again restrict it to Watchtower by clicking uncheck all and selecting Watchtower, and now we can see we have much more results, 807. And if we scroll down, we can see different variations of these keywords. So we've got answers here, we've got answer, and if we scroll down a little bit further, and then we have answered. So let's click on this result as an example. So as we can see, it's in paragraph 18, but there aren't that many landmarks. We do have this subheading here. It's toward the end of the paragraph. And then we have this word here, the name Jehovah, which of course is a familiar word. We know it will be Yehovah in Chinese. And so when we sync across, we can look for these landmarks. But when I do sync across, look at what happens here. We can see that the default language is now set to Mandarin, so we don't have to change this again. And when I click sync, I'm taken from paragraph 18 in the English right to the start of the article in Chinese. And now I have to scroll all the way down to paragraph 18. So how can we avoid this? In other words, how can we be taken directly to the paragraph that I want? So if we go back a page and zoom out a little, and so we're back on paragraph 18 here. And if we have a look at the address bar, which unfortunately I can't zoom into, but if you were able to see the address bar, you would see that the address ends in the word SEN. Now, we don't need to know what that means, but if we click on paragraph 18, the first thing that we'll notice is that everything around it is grayed out. And the only thing in focus is paragraph 18. So we're focused in on this paragraph. And then if we were to look at the address bar again, now it ends in H equals 26. Now, again, we don't need to know what this means, but suffice to say, it's a unique reference specifically for paragraph 18. If I were to click on paragraph 19, that would have its own unique reference, and so would all of the other paragraphs. And so we've clicked on paragraph 18, everything else is grayed out. And now when we sync across, look what happens. We're taken directly to paragraph 18 in the Chinese. And remember, our landmarks are this subheading here below, and we know that the phrase is somewhere around the end of the paragraph, and we were looking for the keyword Yehovah, which is right here. And the phrase comes directly after it. 回应了我的很多祷告。耶和华回应了我的很多祷告。Jehovah has answered many of my prayers. And of course, as mentioned before, it's good practice to look at other search results to see if there are variations of this phrase. Now, one last great thing about syncing that will absolutely rocket boost our vocabulary is that we will inevitably end up going down rabbit holes, which is a good thing. Now, what do I mean by going down rabbit holes? Well, let's go back a page, back to paragraph 18, And we were originally interested in looking at how to say prayers will be answered or any variation of this. But at the same time, we might notice that below it is another interesting phrase, open up to my friends. Now, we weren't looking for this originally, but we might see it and it might pique our interest. And we might think, well, how do we say open up to somebody? Well, let's go down that rabbit hole. So making sure that paragraph 18 is selected, so everything else is grayed out. We sync back across to the Chinese. We're taken directly to paragraph 18. And we know that the phrase that we want is right at the end of paragraph 18. And we find it just here. 向朋友们敞开心扉. So 敞开 means to open wide, and 心扉 means the door to your heart. Wow. So 敞开心扉 means to open wide the door to your heart. So just imagine you have a Bible student who is facing a difficult situation and feeling down about it. To encourage them, you could say, 你可以在祷告里向上帝敞开心扉. You can open your heart to Jehovah in prayer. So what a fantastic phrase. So this is all through the power of syncing and rabbit holing, where we can learn these new phrases and gradually increase our vocabulary. So in this lesson, we've learned about not only A, but also B, 不仅, yeah, and even, 连, yeah. And we've learned about the power of synchronization. In the next lesson, we'll look at did not A, but rather did B, will not do A, but rather will be, and callbacks. See you next time.